Welcome whatsoever, more or less. My name is Jason, and today I've actually got kind of a question for you. Is it a sign of underlying pride? Is it a sign of a lack of sufficient spiritual preparedness or testimony if we look at some of the aspects of what we've been raised with, teachings-wise, and say those teachings are too extreme, they're outdated, you're focusing on the wrong things, and particularly I'm getting to the point of the Constitution. Of course, this channel is a Constitution channel, and I'm also getting to the point of physical preparedness, right? Because, President Nelson, for example, let's go ahead and hit that one real quick here. He says, prepare physically, prepare spiritually, and never stop preparing, right? Like Captain Moroni in his Embrace the Future with Faith talk, right? He says he's even more concerned about our spiritual preparedness, though. Why would he be more concerned about our spiritual preparedness? Well, because if you think about it, to me, this is my feeling, is spiritual preparedness will motivate you to obey all of the commandments, right? To not treat the gospel like it's, pick and choose your favorite parts because you like the programs. It's not about the programs, it's about the cumulative set of teachings, right? When you're spiritually prepared, if you ask me, right? What I, the Lord, have spoken, I have spoken, and I excuse not myself. You're more likely to think that way if you actually have a testimony and have worked for it, have been on your knees, feeling that stress. Oh man, they're asking for a lot of commitment, Why should I do this much commitment? And you feel that stress, and you need the answers, and you got the answers, and you fought for them, and you got them. If you fought for those answers, it kind of changes you for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life, all of it matters, right? So, and I shouldn't say it's perfection. So I once heard Elder Hawes say, when he came and visited us in the Payson, Arizona stake, that disobedience isn't the opposite of obedience, but rebellion is, right? So then what would we classify as rebellion, I guess? I guess probably, first off, rebellion would be straight up saying, I'm not going to do it, and to top it off, I'm going to promote that others not do it even though we've been told to do it. Okay, I guess that would be the most aggressive rebellion. Maybe the second most aggressive rebellion would be just to say, I'm not gonna do it, right? And then maybe the third most, after that, maybe you're not into rebellion anymore at that point. I don't know, maybe the dismissive behavior. Well, they're just saying what they think is probably they're just expressing their opinions. I'd actually have to call that probably rebellion too, because either they are prophets, seers, and revelators, or they're not. Elder Rasmussen, I was just listening to a talk from him, I believe it's the one called Words Matter. And as he's given the talk, at one point he says, as one of the 15 prophets, seers, and revelators that you guys have sustained today, and then he says, further exhortations and what have you. But the greater point was, he's saying, hey, I'm speaking to you as a prophet, as one of the prophets, seers, and revelators. Okay, so not expressing opinion then. So if we ignore the need to study the Constitution and the need to physically prepare, is it possibly a sign that we are just not sufficiently spiritually prepared in the first place? Or as President Benson would say, we're too proud, right? Which he told us, beware of pride, okay? Just saying, I don't know, because, I'm into preparedness in the Constitution and stuff like that. So the second I say that, I am giving myself credit for not being prideful, right? So, okay, let's go ahead and go there. Yeah, it's probably true. But still, Okay, so H. Verlin Anderson, Elder H. Verlin Anderson, former BYU law professor, General Authority 70, pen pal of Ezra Taft Benson, somebody that Thomas S. Monson complimented in one of his talks for his faithfulness and not being willing to let expediency compromise his faithfulness to covenants, right? He teaches that many people are under the mistaken assumption that they won't be held accountable in judgment for the acts committed by their representative government, and that couldn't be further from the truth. You know, whatever the government commits, we're responsible for it to a certain degree. And or as what's his name, the historian who talks about John Adams a lot says, history doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't. There's either people who are indifferent, or there are people who are upholding whatever it is that we've been told is wicked. And so anyhow, I had an opening there. The person slowed down. I probably shouldn't have tried to take it. I'm pulling a trailer here. Dude. Anyhow, so I can't tell. There we go. I got it. Oh, it's just one slow person in front of him. So just wanted to share this thought while I'm driving down the road. I'm always like doing something. Right now we are cleaning up my in-laws' place. My father-in-law has been heavily involved in preparing for his family and teaching us agrarian skills. And you know, the second you set out to live a more agrarian lifestyle, you've basically committed yourself to something difficult and time-consuming. And to top it off, your yard no longer looks so pretty and manicured, if we're just being honest. Plus, you're awkward in conversations if you've got a bunch of food storage. I mean, let's face it, we've had shows that have promoted, you know, that have talked about hoarding and stuff like that. I was just watching the show Homestead again recently, and there's a scene where this prepared homestead, they're all surviving after the grid is down and everything, and the supply chain is down, and someone goes and spray paints their barn, one of their barns on one of the parts of their property with the word hoarders, and probably stole all their stuff, burns it down, right? So, and it's just a representation. The whole show is just, you can tell they're just trying to imagine what would happen in such a scenario, kind of like the Lord of the Flies type of thing or something, right? Anyhow, so there's that. We're seen as weirdos. Plus, to top it off, hey, we're not the experts. Who the heck are we to comment on the Constitution, for example, right? We're living in this expert-obsessed culture where what qualifies you to comment on that? Just to let you know, you guys, I would say that non-lawyers who study the Constitution daily and aggressively, diligently feasting upon it, and maybe paying attention to the words of Madison and Jefferson, the two main founders of our two main founding documents, and their commentary on that, and maybe paying attention, especially paying attention to what the prophets said about the document, diligently feasting upon what they've said about it. They're probably going to be more qualified to comment on the Constitution than a lawyer is who's taking their constitutional law class, which basically focuses on what the Supreme Court has said the Constitution is. And so don't be intimidated by that what qualifies you stuff. Instead, I would turn it back and say, okay, so what percentage of your focus has been on stare decisis versus the actual Constitution? I was listening to a lawyer give a lecture, and he said something about, he was complaining about the way Utah and Idaho and Arizona were admitted to the Union and how so much of our federal land was taken. And he's justified. Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 is abused. It says dispose of. The only valid purpose is for permanently maintaining properties perhaps bought through treaties or things like that, is the Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. Afterwards, everything else is supposed to be disposed of. That's what it says. Words mean things. Words matter, like the Elder Razman talk I was just talking about. And but he says, where's that clause in the Constitution that says all states enter the Union on equal footing? And I thought to myself, wait a second. Okay, that'd probably be in Article 4. This was a while back that I heard that. Probably a year or so ago, back when I was still kind of newer to studying the Constitution. And I'm like looking, and I'm like, there is no equal footing clause. Article 4, Section 2, Clause 1 is the privileges and immunities clause, but that's for citizens, that's not for states. So he was so trained, even though he's a faithful member of the church lecturing on the corruption of government, he was so trained in stare decisis. Even this guy, he had even picked on stare decisis in his lectures, that he could not remember that there's no such clause in the actual Constitution. That's just something the Supreme Court made up a long time ago. It corrupts you, if you ask me, and that's my evidence of it. That's one of my evidences of it. So don't be afraid of the pride of the world when they sit there from their great spacious building mocking you for living the agrarian lifestyle, or for storing up food storage like Joseph of Egypt, for preparing places of refuge physically and spiritually, for studying the Constitution and doing your best to avoid being held accountable for the crimes committed by government, the unrighteous exercise of dominion committed by government. Whether it's at the local level, federal level, it doesn't matter. There is a proper rule. I highly recommend studying Many Are Called, but Few Are Chosen, which is based on that whole idea of the unrighteous dominion thing that's covered in Doctrine and Covenants, section 121. And that's by Elder H. Verlin Anderson. Great book. And he was, like I said, a pen pal of Ezra Taft Benson. He just probably had a little bit more. You know how Dallin H. Oaks has that great way of wording things, right? And Ezra Taft Benson, he was good at wording things, don't get me wrong. It's just a little bit more farmer feeling when you listen to him, right? I would say he gets some more of that lawyer type language, maybe a little bit, when you listen to, when you read Elder H. Verlin Anderson. So, that's it. Beware of pride. I've probably got it just as much as anybody out there, to say, but as I was listening to somebody talk about the 10 virgins, and by the way, look up the chapter in The Faith Precedeth the Miracle by Spencer W. Kimball. That's one of the chapter called The 10 Virgins. One of the first things he addresses is, how many of you have already begun to let your food storage go lax? Okay, I think that's part of what we were called to do for those of us that were part of this new dispensation. You know, I don't know how much this matters, but just kind of nerding out, I thought how, like, on the 6th day, they gathered double, so that the Israelites did, so that they wouldn't have to go and gather on the 7th, right? And all the other days they weren't supposed to, but on the 6th day they were supposed to. Now, if we were born, people like me, in the 6th seal, right? And I don't know, this is a thought that I had a long time ago. Just hit me again today. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember having that thought. Is it kind of something we can see, like 1,000 years is, right, a day to God, right? Are we supposed to be gathering double? I don't know. It's just a thought. I'm just throwing that one out there. But I just, again, my main question is, you might see those of us who study the Constitution and prepare and stuff like that as though we're like full of ourselves and prepare, kind of prideful. And maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we seem unreasonable. But if we seem unreasonable and you're looking at us as though we're unreasonable, maybe that's right. Of course, there is that I'll never forget that one spot in the Book of Mormon where it says they became proud of their flocks and their crops that they were growing. So, for those of us that are preppers, by the way, oh man, that one just hits hard. It's like, dang it. If I get really good at preparing, I'm going to be proud anyhow. There's no way of getting around it. It's just something we got to be constantly fighting against, apparently, in our whole lives. So thanks for listening, you guys. See ya.